welcome to our next episode of Voices of the Game. Yay! Today, my special guest is Griffin. So, Griffin, just tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, how you're involved in sports.
Yeah, so my name is Griffin Goodwyn. I am a senior public relations student here at USC, but I have a minor in sport and entertainment management, a concentration in sports media. So sports is a really big thing that I do, both in and out of the classroom. So I have taken a lot of classes, gone on some study abroad trips where I've really been able to explore sports in other countries because I'm a really big soccer fan. So going abroad was a really big thing. But in terms of extracurriculars, one of the first organizations I joined on campus was the Daily Gamecock, USC student newspaper, and I climbed up the ranks all the way from being, a full staff sports writer where I'm, covering, sports like soccer and tennis, to eventually becoming the sports editor where I was leading the whole section in terms of, managing our budget, kind of editing all the stories that came in and eventually got published. One of the coolest things I got to do was go to the Final Four in 2024, where South Carolina women's basketball won a national championship. So it was really, really cool to see that in person. And outside of that, I've had a couple internships with professional teams. A couple summers ago, I worked up in Greenville for a professional soccer team, which is kind of the same, doing some social media, online website work, which is something I really want to do after I graduate. And then also I have a reporting internship at a website called GamecockCentral.com where I cover a lot of Gamecock sports, pretty similar to what I was doing at the Daily Gamecock, but really focusing, at least in my coverage, on football, a little bit of men's basketball, women's basketball, baseball, and softball as well. So yeah, it would be remiss for me to talk about, my college experience here without mentioning sports because it's really kind of shaped what I've done, how I've gotten involved, and what I want to do after I graduate. So
That's cool. You've done a lot in sports, so you're very well rounded, and that's good. So, what was like your first big break with sports? Like the first thing that you did that you were like, okay, this is what I want to do. This is exactly where I'm going. I think I might make it.
yeah, I know it's funny. My first story with the Daily Gamecock is really, I think, where that love of kind of that realization that I want to do this kind of came about because I would grow up watching Sports Center, the Stuart Scotts of the
Mm-hmm.
world, and I was just like seeing them go on TV, wear a nice suit and tie, talk about sports all day. That's really where I realized, this is I can have a career in this. Because a lot of my other family members, they're accountants, and I just kept on thinking to myself like this. I couldn't do this all day. I couldn't just sit in
Sit
a
at a desk and
cubicle.
punch numbers.
Yeah, I couldn't do that all day. But so that's why I wanted to join. Wherever I went to school, I wanted to join their student newspaper. So here at USC was the Daily Gamecock, and since I'm a really big soccer fan, it was perfect that the women's soccer team's season was in the fall.
Mm-hmm.
So I really dove deep into covering them. And I remember my very first story, I wrote it about the graveyard shift, which is they're the guys who are on the other end of the field. They got the drums that they play throughout the entire game. And I remember interviewing them, writing up that story, and it was putting it together made me realize like, yeah, this is exactly what I wanted to do, especially because I saw it get printed in one of like the physical editions of Daily Game does, and just kind of like seeing my work and seeing my name right there and knowing that other people around campus might have picked up that same exact newspaper was really, really cool. And even like the Gamecock women's soccer team itself like saw the article, reposted on social media
Mm-hmm.
and everything. So just kind of seeing that like the impact that my words could have, I think, was something that made me realize, this is something I could see myself really doing because that's at the end of the day, that's really what it is. It's connecting fans to their favorite sports teams. And I think that that's something that, is really important in kind of, fostering those long-term relationships because people, fall in love with a sports team when they're younger and that love carries through for decades. And I've seen that. And I definitely want to be someone who helps, foster that connection any way I can.
That's awesome. So, is there anything that you wish you knew, like before starting or before going in, that you was like, dang, if I had knew this beforehand, I would have done something differently? Or you just like, you love your path?
Yeah, no, I know the one thing too. I had a bit of a career shift because originally I came as a broadcast journalism student. So I was like, yes, the Stuart Scotts of the world, I want to be that. I want to be on ESPN. I want to have my own show and everything. And I remember thinking that, that was just it. Like, that's the one career path that you take. You go to your TV station, you grab that JVC camera, you edit your packages, and climb the ranks. 20 years later, that's how you make it. But I really realized that careers aren't following that kind of linear pathway. Like you can
Mhm.
dibble dabble a little bit in journalism. That's kind of where I am right now, where I have a lot of extracurricular experience in journalism. I have a lot of in class experience with PR, where I feel like a lot of those skills can be applied across the board. Where
Mhm.
it's something like, if I want to do social media, I can do that. If I want to work for a newspaper, I can do that. So I think that I kind of headed into college with this mindset that you get the degree in the subject, you follow that through, and you get those kinds of jobs all the way through your life. And one of the big things I've learned through college is that you know try to expand your skill set as much as you can, because it can be applied to a lot of different places, and you can really zigzag between different professions. And I've even learned from some alumni, sometimes they'll start working in sports and then they'll find a passion outside of it, so they shift to something like the food and beverage industry, and hope to maybe come back in sports. So it's really understanding that you might have this idea in your head that it's like you just got to go to A to Z and you got to go through all the letters in between. Whereas you can really kind of jump around and still find exactly what you're wanting to do and find your way to um, what you're truly passionate about.
That's good because I was narrow minded for a long time. Like when I came into college, I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do, but it's either gonna be business or medicine. And so I just took all them classes fall freshman year: chemistry, bio, calculus, this, that. And it was so hard. And I was like, I don't want to do none of this actually. So it's great to know that other people are going through the same thing. Because I was like, I don't even know what communications is. And I got into PR and they was like, oh, we have a sports concentration. I'm like, hold on.
Yeah.
I can do sports PR.
Mm-hmm.
What?
Yeah.
So I thought
Yeah.
that was
I
cool.
say I know. I mean, at least for me, like it was like my major change was still something that was in the same discipline. But yeah, I have plenty of friends who started out maybe in like marine science or like
Mm-hmm.
education, and they realized early on in their college careers like, this isn't exactly what I want to do. And I mean, even for me too. Like I mean, every single experience that I've gotten has helped me in terms of figuring out exactly what I want to do. So, for instance, when I interned, it was the Greenville Triumph Soccer Club in Greenville, and I had never really done social media all that much before, but I lived it, and I was in that office a couple days a week, going to all the games, truly seeing what it was like to kind of have that kind of role. And after not thinking it was for me, I'm like, that's something I could totally see myself doing. And like working at the Daily Gamecock, there's some things I realized, I don't want to be I still want to be. I mean, I did enjoy the editing aspect, but then there was a part of me that realized, I think I would rather kind of stick with the writing. I like kind of being able to have that, creative liberty, as opposed to like, being the one who has to make sure like the Oxford commas are out, or,
Oh yeah.
all the quotes are in the right place and everything. So like every experience has allowed me to really, ask myself, is this something I could see myself doing? And again, I think I'm very fortunate to have a lot of those experiences be like, yes, it's only reinforcing that I want to do this. But that doesn't mean that for other people, like, it just shows the importance of trying things. And even if it's something you don't see yourself doing, go ahead, jump in, whether you dip your toe in the water or you just dive headfirst straight into it, because again, you're really going to learn what you want to do by actually doing it. So I think that's just
Right.
something that I recommend to everybody. Just get involved, do what you are in that headspace wanting to do, and you'll find out whether it's something you want to do, or if you don't, find something else, or if you do really like it, you can still keep on doing it forever you want. So
Right. And that brings me to my next point. When you are trying new things and testing the waters a little bit, sometimes you find out things are a little bit different or a little bit hard. So my next question is, were there any challenges that you faced so far? You kind of talked about the social media aspect a little bit, like you didn't really know too much about it, but you put in the work. So what other challenges have you faced coming into your career so far?
yeah, absolutely. I think even with the social media, like at first, one of the big things for me is I feel like I'm a perfectionist. So, and I
Mhm.
was like, I remember that was one of the biggest pieces of feedback I got from my supervisor when they would kind of have like little evaluations here and there. Sometimes I wasn't quick enough with, posting certain things, or I would, spend a little bit too long trying to write a caption, because I was like, I felt like I needed to do something witty, I needed to do something that like played off of a pun, and I was just like checking over my work a million times to make
Mm-hmm.
sure it was perfect, because I don't know, I'm just cognizant of, digital footprints. I don't want to say something the wrong way. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like I had that extra bit of caution, and they were basically just like, you can let loose a little bit. Like it's okay to make mistakes. And I mean, you can check it over 5 fewer times than you have been, and it's still going to be fine. So really, from that moment forward, I was definitely more free flowing in terms of, how quickly I was able to get things out, how I was able to, you know, balance all the work that I had. And from that point forward, it was not as much of an issue. And even then, too, like I think technology has kind of been a big thing
Mm-hmm.
for me. I'm not the most tech savvy person in the world. So I know that when I was on SGTV and I was going out for my first assignment, I'm like, oh my gosh, this camera has so many buttons. I don't know
Like
how to,
what does
I
what?
don't know which one of these does what. And then we go back to the office, we start editing, and I'm like, I don't know what all these controls in Adobe Premiere Pro are. And it kind of, like I was talking about before with my podcast too, like Adobe Audition, I'd never used it before, and there's just so many little controls, and it's like I don't know what all these are going to do. I don't know how to like clip audio. I just didn't know how to do a lot of it, which mostly was solved through a quick Google search, but or just YouTube videos that I would find. But I think really, I think this whole media thing, it's really learning by doing, and the
Mm-hmm.
more that you expose yourself to it, the easier it's going to come to you. There's always going to be a steep learning curve with any kind of new software, entering a new field, things of that sort. So it's really just kind of having, like telling yourself that, it's okay to make mistakes in the beginning. It's okay to fail. It's okay to not have everything go perfectly, because eventually once you get enough reps in, then it's going to be a lot easier and come your way. So I think I've learned through a lot of those experiences that may have been challenging that yes, you're not going to master it on the first try. And especially if you're, having a new job or you're going to a new organization, they're not going to expect you to know everything right away. So it's really learning by doing and understanding that, yeah, it might take until like the fourth, fifth, or even the 17th try to really master something.
Yeah, I I have a hard time with the software too, especially Adobe.
Yeah.
Anything in Adobe, Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, everything in Adobe Creative Cloud is just too much. And I have a media arts minor, so like
Mm-hmm.
all of my classes this far, I've had to use it, and every single time it's like I have the vision in my head of what I
Mm-hmm.
want to do, but I just get on there and I'm like, nothing makes sense.
Yeah.
Like none of this works. Like how can I make a cool transition from this to this? And then I see the people that work with like Gamecock football and the women's basketball team make those cool hype videos,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, I have the vision to do that. I just don't have the
Yeah.
skills.
I just like I see all the buttons, all the controls, and I kind of get like sensory overload. Like I don't
Yes.
know what any of these mean. I don't know what they do. I don't want to touch them because I don't want to mess up what I have going
No,
right now.
literally.
But again, that's something that with free time and sheer willpower, I mean,
Yeah.
anybody can learn how to do it if they're determined to. So that's, yeah, I think it's definitely something that, if you're really dedicated and want to work on it, then you'll find time to work on it for sure.
I agree. I agree. So we're gonna shift a little bit to like the future of sports journalism because AI is coming in crazy, and we got
Mm-hmm.
the influencers out here now. So where do you see sports journalism heading in the next 5 to 10ish years? Because you do a lot of like traditional writing a little bit, but there's some shifts here and there. So where do you see it
Yeah,
going?
I think really that's one of the big things, because I feel like what makes journalism so great is that, these writers are able to put their own creative spin. They have their own unique style, they have their own unique voice. That when it comes to AI, I feel like as of right now, it's really hard to replicate that.
Okay.
Like, I know that, there's some times where I've seen AI used before where maybe, say for instance, I'm like typing up notes for like a school assignment, and it's able to summarize it, maybe flesh it out into paragraphs. And I'm sure that, in some capacity, say you're watching a sporting event, like you can maybe jot down some bullet points of, big things that happen. Maybe you're watching an NBA game and John Moran scores like 35 points, and he has the stat line, and there are other characteristics of the game that you can maybe type into AI, have it spit out maybe like a little bit of a summary. And I know that I've seen, like, for instance, like the Associated Press, I think sometimes they have what they call like the data scribe, which really like they might not have a reporter who is able to write a little preview for like every single one of these college basketball games. So they have like this software kind of pick out the big numbers and do it um, for them. And I know that we live in this age where the content is just like spewing at you from all different directions. And I mean, you've seen how AI can even like intensify that, where you see like, for instance, like on Instagram and Twitter, I see all those like Studio Ghibli like photo alterings of things. And I think that especially again in a field like journalism and PR, where really like having your own voice is super duper important. I can kind of see where AI is maybe creating some clashes, because I know that again, I think that's the beauty of it. You read works by certain writers because you like the way they write, and I think AI is definitely going to reach a point where they can kind of replicate that voice. And I think that, I mean, there are definitely like professional organizations that are hopping on that trend now. So it'll definitely be really interesting to kind of see the role of AI moving forward, because yeah, again, it's a great place to kind of continue that trend of just having so much content kind of being spit at you. So it'll be interesting to see whether AI maybe becomes more integrated into kind of this work that everybody's doing, or I've talked about it in like classes a whole lot, where maybe AI is going to help people like realize what they're missing, I guess, from like original content creation. And maybe it might make people appreciate a lot of the work that like these journalists, these, as you kind of mentioned, the people who make the hype videos for Gamecock football, a lot of the work that they do, because again, that's not like, oh, they have a bunch of video clips, send it to AI, make this hype video for me. They're the ones who are really choosing the clips they want, the music they want, the angles they want to create something incredible. So it'll be interesting to see kind of what AI does for the future, because I mean, I think that's probably one of the biggest hot button topics of the day. So it's hard to kind of talk about what that impact looks like right now, but I mean, it's definitely going to keep on making waves in the future.
And it's scary for people that want to work in this field, because if AI gets to a point where you can say, replicate an article by Griffin Lewis using these terms and like, why should I hire somebody?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I don't need to pay you to write this when I can get AI to do it in 30 seconds.
Exactly.
Like, and then it can check the grammatical errors too. So it's like,
I think it's definitely good. There might be some organizations that just don't have that manpower, where maybe they have someone who is like a dedicated, like full-time, write all these like, press releases, other things. I think it can be useful for maybe some organizations that don't really have that manpower. I feel like I'm definitely one that, again, kind of likes, having someone be able to do the writing, just because I really like, seeing their style. And I know there's sometimes where like AI might like over dramatize things a little bit, and then you have to go back in anyways and kind of fix what it's been saying as well. But yeah, it'll definitely be something to watch for sure.
Yeah, AI be putting words in my mouth that I know I wouldn't say. Like, I'll type 100 words and I'm like, expand this to 150 words, and they'll put in some crazy words. I'm like, never mind. I'll come up with my own words.
I'll write those 50 words myself.
Because what?
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're gonna go into the next segment, which is like the whole point of this show essentially is getting to know the people that work in sports outside of sports and what they do for fun in their free time, what makes them them. So it's called Beyond Sports. So the first question is, when you're not covering sports, what do you enjoy doing in your free time?
So I really enjoy hanging out with a lot of my friends and my roommates. One of the things that we do to bond is going to watch movies. So we have like those Regal Unlimited passes where maybe you pay like $20 a month, go to the theater whenever you want to catch some flicks. So we really like watching a lot of the new releases that come out, but then there are definitely some nights where we just kind of browse on like Peacock, HBO to kind of see maybe some of the movies that we missed in theaters, or maybe some of the older classics, and watch those. I actually love listening to podcasts and music whenever I'm walking to class. I'm always jamming to some tunes, or really just trying to fill my brain with some more information. I just like soaking things up. I'm like a sponge when it comes to information. I like learning new things, whether it's about sports or other things. I like reading books. I haven't had a whole lot of time to do that with the busyness of school, but once I finally get some free time over the summer, I'll kind of get into that. And I also really like animals. I have 2 dogs at home. I love taking care of them, not at my apartment, but like back home.
Okay, okay.
So I like, seeing pictures of them because they're like the most adorable things in the world. So definitely like I love just hanging out with friends, movies, music, reading. Those are really some of the things that, I feel like sports is, you know, a big component of my life, like in the classroom and outside the classroom. And even when I'm not like working, I still like, we'll put on a baseball game, put on a
Okay.
football game. I'll, read, the latest news as my source of fun. But even outside of sports, there are definitely some activities I really like to do. So
That's cool. I feel like you live a pretty normal life when it's not 24/7 sports.
yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
music has actually been a common theme. Everybody that I've interviewed so far either has something to do with like music or fine arts or something. So I think that's something to note. But the next question is, if you weren't working in sports media, where do you think your career path would have taken you?
That's a really interesting question. I feel like I haven't really thought about that a whole lot. I know when I was thinking about going to school, my parents wanted me to be a pharmacist because they were
Oh,
like, yeah, I know, very,
pharmacy.
very different career paths, but they were like, oh, you're good at memorizing things. You're good at just, I was just a naturally bright kid. So they were like, he can do, the doctor, a lawyer, a pharmacist kind of thing. And I remember my parents were like talking to like pharmacists they knew who kind of lived in our neighborhood, and they didn't have a whole lot of great stuff to say about it, which kind of think was like, okay, that's why I'm not wanting to do that, because I really want to do something like personally fulfilling with my career. And I definitely think that, like, again, telling stories about sports is really where I see myself doing that. But so definitely pharmacy is one thing that I considered for like a little bit, but even outside of like sports media, like I've taken a lot of really cool like hospitality
Okay.
management kind of classes. So I think even like outside of sports, I think that would be like, event planning, like, kind of doing that sort of thing. I think
Yes.
that's something that I've kind of, you know, not something I've really done, and I know it's a lot of work, but I feel like a lot of getting that background a little bit in some of my classes, I think is something that, outside of sports, would be really fun. Whether like, like working at like a country club, or, yeah, like just like planning events and stuff, just
That's
kind of bring people together.
cool.
So
That's right up my alley. Like that's what I want to do in sports. I want to be like the person over like the galas and the fundraisers and the
mm-hmm.
formals, like putting all that together.
Yes.
That's like the perfect career path. I just interned with the Gamecock Gala on Monday.
Oh, really?
So it was so cool, like facilitating the nominees. Get to your spot before the camera comes on. Okay,
Yep.
you here. Like it
Yep.
was like a rush, but it was so fun.
Mm-hmm.
So like being behind the scenes with that, I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
this is the path I'm going down. So
Yeah.
that's cool. Pharmacy is hilarious though.
I kick myself a little bit whenever I think about it, because I'm just like, I cannot believe that I almost like did that, because like I'm not a big math guy, I'm not a big science guy, so I'm just like,
Oh,
why was that even in the realm
I
of
feel that. No,
possibility?
that was me. That's why I was like, oh, medicine or business, because I was trying to go where the money was at. I was like, if
Yep.
I'm gonna come to college and I'm gonna get education, I might as well guarantee myself some
Yeah,
money when I graduate.
that was the appeal. That was definitely the appeal. But once I realized that I could potentially be like working at like a retail pharmacy and just dealing with all those people, or like being in like a little office, just like going like,
Just
okay,
like,
count all the doses, like that. Yeah, it would have gotten me a lot of money, but like from 9 to 5, I'd be like, man, I want to be somewhere
I
else, and
hate my
I
job.
really don't, I really don't want to be feeling that way. So
Yeah. Mm-mm. So, what's one thing about you that people, either in the industry or in the classroom, wherever, what's one thing that they don't know about you?
I think one of the things that I don't really talk about a whole lot is that, kind of still in the vein of like entertainment, I'm a big sports person, but definitely over the past couple of years, I've gained a greater appreciation for theater. I took a lot of musical theater classes in high school, because the
Oh,
professor, the teacher was really great. And I've joined like a club on campus off Broadway, where I've really been able to kind of, see, like kind of behind the scenes of how you kind of put a show together, and it's really great because it's a lot of people who, some of them are music theater majors, and that's something they want to do after graduation, but it's a lot of people who have, they're in the journalism school, they're in, poli sci, they're in, STEM, and it's not necessarily something they're wanting to do after they graduate, but it's something they still find fun. So like having that kind of passion is something that's really inspiring, and I've really been able to kind of explore that level a little bit better just because I have a lot of really close friends who also really enjoy it. So we've gone to like see shows in Greenville and Charlotte, and I even took a class where it was about the business of Broadway, and I got to New York City and I got to see a couple shows there as well.
Oh, you went to Broadway in New York
I went to
City?
the Broadway. Yeah.
Oh
So
my
yeah, so
gosh.
I think
You that
theater.
guy, Griffin.
Yeah, I think theater is definitely something. It also has helped me a little bit. I haven't done as much performing, but I mean, the whole public speaking, the performative aspect of it has definitely helped in some areas outside of it too. So I think really just kind of, I know a lot of my extracurriculars have been in sports, but being able to kind of explore, a hobby of mine that's kind of, I'm definitely by no means a theater expert. I just want to clarify that. Like, I don't know, like, who the big actors are on Broadway.
Oh
I
yeah.
just know some shows and some songs, but it's still really fun, and I love the people who are a part of that community too. So
That is so cool. My one and only show that I saw on Broadway in San Francisco was Hamilton. And
okay,
then
that's a good one.
I
That's a good one
fell
to start out
asleep
with.
near the end, but not because it wasn't good, because it
Mm-hmm.
really was good. But it was so long, and I didn't really
Yep.
understand how long these Broadway productions were. And I was
It's
like, Mom, we just ate dinner. Like,
it's long, and it's like the room is dark, so it's like
yes.
and you're in a food coma after dinner. You naturally just want to like start dozing off in
I
your
was
seat.
like,
I totally
wow. But it
I
was
totally
so
understand. Yeah,
good.
no, Hamilton's a good one. I mean, that's a that's probably as good a place to start as any. So
See,
yeah.
okay, and I had the opportunity to see the Wiz when I was
Mm-hmm.
in London for All American Cheer. One of our like fun days was going to a production, but my group didn't go. We took like a day trip to Paris instead
I
to
mean,
go see
hey,
like Versailles and Eiffel Tower. So we thought we were doing something, and then after seeing all those monuments, it was cool. Like, oh, we saw it, but afterwards I was like, dang, I really should have went to see the Wiz.
I mean, I'm not to dog the Wiz, but I'm sure it's a wonderful show. But Paris, I would, I've got the European travel bug, so I'm like, I want to go to
Okay,
Paris, I want to go to
fair.
Rome, I want to go to London, I want to go to all those places. So Paris is pretty high on my list. I think if I were given an opportunity to see the Wiz or
Or
go to
Paris,
Paris,
you go.
I'd probably go to
See,
Paris.
that's
But you
what we
know
thought
what?
too.
That's not everyone might feel that way, and that's okay. We all love different things. Some people really love the theater, and then some people really just want to have some baguettes and crepes in front of the
Right.
Eiffel
And the
Tower.
crepes were so good. I'm
I'm
not gonna
sure.
lie. We bought
Yeah.
berets and all. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm living the Paris lifestyle in Paris. So my next to last little segment is called mental health in sports media. So we know it's a really big topic. Mental health is at a place now where it's not taboo to talk about it. We understand what it is and why it's there. So the first question is, how often or how do you manage stress and burnout? Because everybody says sports is 24/7, and when you're writing, you already said you're a perfectionist. So
Mm-hmm.
how do you manage that work-life balance?
Yeah, I know that's something that I myself am still trying to work on. I feel like there's some things that everyone can do better to really strike that work-life balance. And that's
Mm-hmm.
something that I've learned a lot when I've talked to industry professionals, because you're right. It's, for a lot of time, a lot of people, it's, 9 to 5 extra, like you're working a lot of odd hours, while everyone else is, attending the game as a fan, on a Friday or Saturday night. You're the one in the press box who, gets to the stadium at maybe like 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and you don't leave till like 2 or 3 in the morning. Then you got to go back at it again the next day. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of sacrifices that have to be made if you really want to make it big there. So I really think, I know for me, just the fact that, I am plugged in a lot of the time, whether it's on my laptop or my phone, just having some time away from it all where I'm just kind of like, okay, laptop shut, phone in my pocket, just kind of like doing some other things, whether that's, going on a walk around campus, just kind of hanging out with my friends. I think giving yourself breaks to kind of unplug a little bit is a really big thing, especially in social media too. I've heard from like, a lot of people that, there's always like this like innate feeling of needing to be plugged in all the time. Like if some fan responds to a post at like 11 p.m. at night, you kind of want to be like, engaging with them. And again, you mentioned sports is 24/7. There really is no stop. But
Mm-hmm.
human beings can't be 24/7. So it's okay to kind of, step aside from a lot of those things and everything. And I think also on top of that, just kind of like prioritizing yourself is also important. So again, when you do have that time that you're unplugging, making sure, it's something as simple as like, you can make yourself a nice dinner, you can, exercise, you can, fold your laundry, if you feel like you need to take an extra long shower or bath, go do it. Because I think there's a lot of, stress associated with working in sports because again, there's such high pressure. If you're in social media, you don't want to be, you're running an NFL social media page, you don't want to have any typos in your posts because a million people will see it.
Right. And they gonna
If
eat you
you
up.
like, if you're, a journalist, you want to make sure that the game story is done by the final whistle, and there is a lot of stress in trying to hit that deadline, make sure everything looks good. So I think just kind of giving yourself time to unplug, giving yourself time to kind of focus on yourself, I think is a really big thing. Just because you can't let your work completely consume you. That's what's going to get you burnt out. If you feel like every waking moment is dedicated to that work, that's when you might lose that passion for it a little bit early on,
Mm-hmm.
or you might feel like, hey, I am actually getting to a point where I need to like step aside from this. So do that stepping aside, from the beginning, and make sure that you are focusing on yourself, because again, if you just keep working at it, you become less productive yourself. So like, making sure you eat right, go to sleep, get enough rest, have enough energy in the day is really what's going to make you the best person you can be and really put your best foot forward when it comes to everything that you're doing.
Right. And you touched on this just a little bit, but especially like working with social media, bots go crazy. And I say this all the time. I hate haters and I hate bots.
Mm-hmm.
So, how do you handle the pressure of like online social media criticism and negativity? Have you had any people like comment on any of your posts and stories and say something off the wall that you like, leave me alone?
Not a whole lot, but I mean, I just feel like in general, like you can't. I mean, obviously, you want to cater to your audience. There's always that saying that like the customer is right.
Hmm.
But with a lot of time, there are people who on social media are just they're just straight up trolls, and like they're wanting the attention, they're wanting to get engagement and clicks and interaction, and sometimes you kind of have to like realize that again, it's not like a personal thing. Like it, for instance, like maybe you're working for a football team and you're working for South Carolina and they get beat by Georgia by like 50 points. Like, there might be a lot of people negative in the comments, but it's not your fault. Like
Right.
it's not, you weren't the one, maybe on the field who missed the tackle or was just physically outmatched or anything in that sort of deal. So I think really like not taking those negative comments as a personal slight, I think is a really big thing, because yeah, again, people will just hide behind a keyboard and say whatever they want,
Hmm.
and they might not be saying those same exact things if it was the interactions were in person. So it's really just kind of like, they exist, and I think you kind of have to acknowledge that, but just not kind of let those haters and those trolls getting to you. I think it's a really big thing.
Yeah, just don't pay them no attention,
Mm-mm.
I guess. So, who or what has helped you most in maintaining a strong mindset throughout your career so far?
I think a lot of my professors really have been a big help in the journalism school, because they're really the ones I came to school with no journalistic background whatsoever, or really anything with media. I barely had a semblance of a student newspaper in my high school. So really learning in the classroom, here's kind of how to do this, and then moving forward and applying it to everywhere I've been since, I think has been really foundational. I think I've had a lot of mentors also outside the classroom as well who've really helped me out. If I have a question, I need some feedback on something, I know they're in my corner and I could reach out to them and they can help me out. So I think it's really just, I think like the network that I've been able to build here, whether it's again professors, people in the industry who I want to follow in their footsteps, and even like my peers as well. I've really gotten to meet some talented, driven, ambitious people who I know that I'm going to have long lasting relationships with outside of school. So I think really kind of, picking their brains, seeing, how they view things, how they approach what they do, and kind of um, having them as a resource as well to give me constructive criticism when I need it, hold me accountable, but then also praise me for when I'm doing something positive. I think really just the fact that I've been able to build this network of support over the past 4 years here has been really, really huge, and I know it's going to pay dividends, once I walk across that stage in a couple weeks.
That's awesome. And fun fact, me and Griffin were actually partners last semester in class, so we had to read each other's work and criticize it.
Mm-hmm.
And he is not lying. He is a perfectionist. I probably found 2 mistakes out of all of his articles. So, kudos to you.
Thank you. I
So,
appreciate it.
the last segment and my most favorite one. It's called Who Does He or She Want to Be?
Okay.
So I'm going to show you a picture, and I
Mhm.
want you to tell me who you think this person wants to be. Are you
Mhm.
ready?
All right. Oh my gosh, not the baby photo. That is insane. Well, what's good is that I do know what this little guy wanted to be when he grew up. He wanted to be an astronaut. That was the first thing. He wanted to be an astronaut. Little me wanted to be an astronaut. I had space stuff all over my room. I had like a model spaceships. I had like lights that would flash on the ceiling when I went to bed that show like the time, so I would keep track of when I needed to wake up. And I had like stars and planets and all this stuff. So little me wanted to be an astronaut. And knowing now what I didn't know back then, there's no way I would have wanted to go to space. I'm afraid of heights. Of seeing Earth from that high above would have scared the ever living everything out of me. I would not have wanted to do that. G forces are crazy. I would not have been able to withstand them. And I don't know. I feel like just venturing into the unknown is a little bit scary because, like, I mean, there's so much in space that you don't know about, and I've seen so many of like those like science fictiony, like horror, like movies, conspiracy theories, like, oh, am I gonna get abducted by aliens?
Do you believe in aliens?
I have no idea. I've been too focused on sports to really give that much thought.
They probably got
honest.
alien football leagues.
Alien football leagues.
They running around.
I wonder if we would beat them. But
See,
I feel
I'm
like
wondering.
I'm scared though, because I think if they've got some like crazy alien wide receiver guy who's got like 6 arms, so he can catch the ball
like,
with 2
right
of them
here.
and then stiff arm a few people with the others. Like, I think we might be in some trouble. But yeah, no, little me wanted to be an astronaut, and thank goodness I switched career paths, because I don't think I would have been able to cut it. So.
Well, that's all right. Here you have it. Thank you, Griffin, for joining me on my show. It was so good to talk to you.
Thank you, too. This has been absolutely wonderful. I love talking about my experiences, so anytime I get an opportunity to do it, I really treasure it. So thank you so much.